OP's group was just starting a new campaign, which was a sequel to a finished campaign. Must be nice to finish a campaign once in a while. Never done that myself personally. Moving on. The players consist of the original group plus a new player that the DM knows. OP notes that they had met this new player in person and liked to preface that the new player was an overall lovely person, very bubbly and sweet, but OP could not stand her playing D&D. OP was apprehensive at first about said new person joining, but Session 0 did go fine, and the new player seemed somewhat inexperienced, but otherwise okay. OP notes that inexperience is no issue, as their group is a mix of both avid players and then some more newer casual players. Our celebrity cast for this story and this party are DM, playing the DM, Goliath Cleric as OP, Elf Druid being played by the new player, a Goblin Ranger being played by OP's partner. We have Human Wizard playing Human Wizard. We have a Kobold, doesn't matter what class they are, it's a Kobold. And then finally, we have a Gnome Rogue. Unfortunately, following the success of Session 0, Session 1 was starting to get problematic straight off the bat. New player spoke almost non-stop. No matter what it was, she spoke on the matter and had an opinion, and barely anyone could get in a word edgewise. For example, one session where OP was sick, OP could hear the game going on from the other room through her partner's speakers, which means that all she really heard for the good 90% of the story was the new player talking. The new player also rolled for pretty much everything, regardless of whether or not it would be in character for them to do so. They just started rolling d20s. An example of this would be that OP's cleric was more likely to roll on medicine checks to make sure people were okay, but they were not really likely to roll on arcana checks, as it was in character for them to not do that. I have DM'd with players like this before, and it isn't really a big deal, as OP does point out, but it can get mildly annoying, and overall, playing your character and kind of role-playing what your character would be good at, like doing checks for, just makes the game smoother and makes it more fun, and stops it from being just a, well, every room we walk into, all 5 of us roll a perception check, okay, then found nothing, let's roll an investigation check, and so forth. The new player does, however, constantly ask the DM if she can use random skills to roll for random things, pretty much unrelated to them. The new player was proficient in the skills she tried to roll for, so it does make a little sense, but overall, she was trying to play to her strengths without really knowing how the rolling works and what fell under what category. This does sound fine, could be just an experienced player. OP notes that this was happening on every single roll, with the new player trying to use perception or nature for just about everything imaginable, while nagging the DM to let her do so, which, thankfully, he stood his ground and did not. Overall, this new character was playing their character in the good old alignment of chaotic stupid. The new player does what she wants, when she wants, regardless of the party, and wants total control over every situation. Her character trope is that she has to be high or she gets too aggressive. She brings this up constantly as justifications for her actions. I am all for getting these little traits on your characters and playing them your way. But when you use a substance addiction in-game to justify being chaotic stupid and going against what the party wants and being randomly aggressive, that just needs to be stopped. If your version of fun is making others not have fun, then it shouldn't be allowed at a D&D table. Okay, let's set that tangent aside. Back to the horror story. During combat, the new player would talk over other people's turns, even going so far as to talk over them constantly. Not to even mention that the party had gotten into several combat encounters simply due to the new player wanting to do something chaotic stupid, and forcing the others to go along with it. For example, the party came across a giant frog monster that was carrying unconscious civilians in its claws. They were explicitly described as being alive, but unconscious. Enter New player, the Druid. I want to cast Moonbeam. To which OP jumped in and said, hey guys, please don't kill the civilians. Please don't cast that spell. But the Druid had made up her mind. She was going to cast it anyway. You know, since Moonbeam is an AoE spell that requires a save to dodge the damage of, a save that unconscious civilians can't make, this resulted in all the civilians dying to the Moonbeam. Unfortunately, this Moonbeam incident wasn't actually the first time that civilians had died due to the new player's actions. OP doesn't exactly describe that situation. Moving on. The new player would try to justify their actions in these civilian killing scenarios, saying, well, they're probably done for anyway. Which OP tried to state in character is simply not true, or that they don't know for certain, and that they should at least try to save them. The thing that bothers OP is that this attitude removes autonomy from everyone else at the table. Regardless of what the party wanted to do or what they discussed, it would all be for nothing because the Druid really wanted to cast Moonbeam. OP's character rightfully felt bad about everything that was happening in regards to civilian murdering. So they pointed out that they need to stop doing that sort of thing. Civilian murdering, off the table. Okay? This led to the other party members somewhat turning their gaze to the Druid, resulting in her being a little ostracized. Not OP's intention, but they simply wanted to reduce the collateral damage they were causing, since their cleric is meant to be a good and helpful person. The new player did somewhat separate herself too, as when the party was heading to some docks to speak with an NPC, they came across a crowd. Most of the party decided to go check out what the commotion was, while the new player decided to sit in a tree and get high. The new player did seem somewhat annoyed that she was not involved with what was going on in the crowd and had no control over the situation, entirely despite the fact that she had actively taken herself away from it and decided on her own to get high in the tree. At the end of the session, most of the party decided to go find an inn to rest at. Now, the new player wanted to go drinking with some dwarves she found. The DM, at this point, told her that it was not going to happen. He was not going to run a totally separate session for her to drink with some dwarves while everyone just kind of watched and waited. And that, dear listener, is where our horror story ends for today. My only closing thought is, they introduced a kobold? What'd the kobold do? Kobolds are 100% condensed bastard, and it's got to be doing something in this campaign. It's got to be messing around.